Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Hog Trough. We've got a very special guest on. We've had him on before, but it's been a while. We've got Ty Hudson on from the Pig Trail Network. Thanks for
Yo,
joining us, Ty. How's it going, man?
doing well. How are you doing, Christian?
Doing great. Good to have you back on, and I'm glad I could have you on after a pretty respectable season out of the Hogs, I'd say.
Yeah, not a lot of people thought they would find a way to get to 8 wins. You know, you and I were talking about it beforehand and before we started recording. They kind of surprised a lot of people. And
Yeah.
I think it started after they beat Texas. And then, of course, A&M, everyone was, that caught everybody's attention. Arkansas just swept the state of Texas. I mean, not to brag, but you did beat Rice, right? I mean, they beat all three of their Texas opponents. But A&M and Texas obviously turned some heads and kind of put Arkansas back on the map. And then, you fast forward and it was like, well, that Texas game wasn't exactly a high-profile win, but still ended up, they found a way to get to 8 wins. And they very well could have won 9. And I've had people in my own in my live chats or my shows say, well, they could have got to 10. And I'd have to agree with them. And I think that 10 could have been within the
Yeah.
was within reach.
I mean, look at the Ole Miss game. I mean, decision to go for 2. You either get that or you don't. There's your 9th win. But we could say the same thing about some of the wins we've gotten too, I guess you could say. But I think the record was indicative of obviously the way we played. I think 8-4. Most any Arkansas fan would have taken that at the beginning of the year.
Oh man!
But I think we always kind of think what could have been as Arkansas fans.
Yeah, that's kind of
So
it's kind of our
yeah.
MO.
Oh yeah, I want to say we're never satisfied, but I think I will also say that we deserve to be good in something, and I think football is definitely on the rise. And yeah, I mean, you said you predicted 8-4 at the beginning of the year, so but what are some games this year that stood out to you?
Well,
As far as
like at the time, obviously the Texas game, and I picked going into that game, I did pick Arkansas to win it, but because I did watch Texas the week before when they played Louisiana, I just wasn't that impressed. I thought Louisiana was way overrated, and Texas didn't exactly shine in that game. They did win, but I didn't really like what I saw there, and of course Arkansas didn't exactly look great against Rice, but I really liked that matchup. Did not expect that to go the way that it did. Arkansas, of course, pulling away, really just frog stomp the Longhorns. They even gift wrapped a touchdown for them. I mean, they really, if you look at it honestly, they held them to 2 scores. They had a third down PI call late in the game. It was a bogus PI call. And they ended up scoring on the very next play on a third down, which they probably would have gone for it anyways, but that late in the game. But yeah, I mean, that game, after watching it, I think I had almost 500. I had about 500 people in that post game show. I just couldn't believe it. Hog fans are excited when you beat Texas. I mean, anything you beat with the color orange, and they're from the state of Texas, by God, that goes a pretty long ways. And chat was lit up. I couldn't keep up. It was so hard to concentrate on the game and to think about what actually happened when we're all kind of decompressing what we just witnessed on that post-game show. But that game was incredible. And to win as easily as they did. And then, like I said, the A&M game, if you go back to that game in the opening quarter, it just looked like it looked easy. Arkansas was moving the ball up and down the field against a pretty salty A&M defense when they were healthy at that point in time in the year. Arkansas again was making it look easy, and all of a sudden it was okay. This team's legit. Like they're for real. But those are 2 games that definitely stood out. Ole Miss in a loss stood out just because I think that was really it was a chance to see KJ Jefferson use his talents against an SEC opponent, and he looked great. And that whole offense was just clicking.
Speaking of KJ, I think he overperformed this year and definitely met my expectations and exceeded probably many people's expectations. About the coaching staff, I know we can speculate all we want about that, but what kind of job do you think they did this year?
Well, it's going to be tough, I think, to keep them all here. I'll say that. Yeah. Kendall Briles, who for whatever reason, I had people in my live chat, people who've been around a while, who, listen, I would like to pride myself on having a pretty good, level-headed community with the Pig Trail Network. And I had people that were they wanted Kendall gone.
Wow.
And yeah, I couldn't understand it. But Kendall, I mean, you're 8-4 because of your offense, because of KJ Jefferson, because of Treylon Burks. I would probably argue, though, the position, if we're talking about just position coaches, I'd probably have to argue Cody Kennedy is having just a phenomenal season. I mean, he's up for some awards. His offensive line are up for some awards. We're talking about possibly Ricky Stromberg getting drafted, in the first round, which, he kind of inherited that. I get it. But, they played pretty well outside of Dalton Wagner and his expected false starts every dadgum week. But they were pretty solid this year. And you look at what they did on the ground. You don't accomplish being most of the year they were a top 10 rushing offense. You don't do that in the SEC. In the SEC West, without a good group of guys up front on the offensive line, and Cody Kennedy has to be given credit for that. I was really blown away at how improved they were. And of course it helps. You got Cunningham and Wagner, and like I said, Ricky Stromberg. You had some experience and some real NFL talent with Ricky and a couple of guys, but I was pretty blown away by what looking back at the body of work, how good they really were. And that would be my assistant coach of the year if I had the ability to hand that award out.
Let's give some love to Sam Pittman though, because he hired these guys, and man, it's been a fun year. The team has had fun. Coach Sam Pittman has obviously had fun. You got the bowling ball. We got 3, I want to say, very, very much needed wins this year were LSU, A&M, and Missouri. I feel like those are wins that going into the season, if you would have said that we were going to win all 3 of those, you would have definitely taken that and ran with it. Speaking of KJ Jefferson, I think he's a player that got increasingly better as the season progressed. At the beginning of the year, we had some doubts if he could throw the ball like he needed to be competitive in the SEC. And I think the numbers back that up, that he was able to perform well enough this year. Another player I want to talk about is Treylon Burks. I mean, he just had an incredible season. I think we can expect that he'll be in the NFL coming up pretty soon. Some speculation on whether or not if he'll play in the bowl game. Have you seen anything about that?
I've seen that rumored here and there. I think right now at the moment, I think that's just fan speculation.
Okay.
I think I've heard some local media people maybe on a broadcast somewhere kind of talk about it, but if I haven't had a chance to watch his he did an interview with Bo Mattingly with Hogs Plus. I don't know if you got a chance to see that or not, or listen to it. But that dude is all like, he's an Arkansan. He is.
Oh yeah.
Your stereotypical outdoors, good old
South
boy
Arkansas.
living.
Oh yeah.
He's all into it, man. I'm not saying that, he's gonna play just because of that, but you got to feel like he probably,
well,
he's with that mentality, with that being more down to earth. Maybe he'll kind of contemplate, the idea of playing in that bowl game, and I'm sure he'll. It's hard to blame anybody not playing a bowl game when you're talking about millions of dollars on the line, and that's exactly what's on the line for him, is millions of dollars. He's probably right now, I think he's projected like 25th, but he'll end up. I think he'll be one of the first 3 receivers taken, which will put him probably somewhere in the top 15. But yeah, I have seen that. I hope it's not true. It's hard to blame him, but I just don't. And he seems like a team player.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
what I was going to say. I mean, he's played hurt in several games this
he
year.
has.
I mean, look what he did in the Alabama game and things like that.
Yeah.
But the man's incredible. I mean, he's a great athlete and just happy that he was able to play for the Razorbacks.
Almost picked Clemson.
He really, wow.
I didn't know that. He liked Clemson because of their colors.
Wow.
And that was revealed in the Hogs Plus episode. If I heard that correctly, it was I think it was his grandparents. He wanted to stay home and close to his grandparents. But of course, when you're that highly rated and you're coming out of a school like Warren, let's be real, that's wide receiver U in the state of Arkansas. He had his offers, and there's no doubt. We all know that he was a highly rated 4-star out of Warren. Probably could have gone anywhere, and but he chose to stay home. But I think too, when it came down to it, he would have been a Razorback regardless. I just think he's an Arkansan. He's a Razorback.
I heard something where he was debating whether or not he wanted to go to like OBU or something too, or Pine Bluff. I can't remember which one it was.
I wouldn't surprise me. I really wouldn't. And he's really close. I think his grandparents raised him, and he's close with them. And I think his grandpa or grandmother may have been sick at the time. I was cooking dinner trying to listen to this thing. I want to go back and listen to it. It's really good. I'm not sponsored by Hogs Plus, obviously, but their content is pretty awesome. I mean, it really is. I'm not trying to, shill for them, but I've been impressed what I've been able to listen to. And what I do is I'm either doing dishes, doing laundry, or cooking some dinner. Got the ribs in the oven and cooking the sides. And I usually have Hogs Plus on, or I'm listening to Trey Biddy's Walk and Talks or whatever. Like I try to consume as much Razorback content as I can. But they do a good job over there. And that was a really good episode with Treylon Burks.
Yeah, he's definitely a big hunter, as we were mentioning earlier. I won't say he's the best receiver in college football, but there's not many receivers I would want over Treylon Burks. If I had one pick, I'd probably go with him.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Just the mentality he has.
The toughness, the hand size. I mean, the dude, what's crazy, not to go too far off key here. What's crazy is he does have giant hands. The NFL loves that. They love that with their running backs, the quarterbacks, the receivers, and tight ends, because obviously it's ball securement. It's really hard. And you can catch the ball in the different weather that you deal with on Sundays all over the country. It's just an advantage. What's crazy to me, though, is this is a guy, if I had one diss or one just skepticism, with those giant hands, he has like 5 drops on the year, which is just I don't know how that's possible. But he had 2 drops. I want to say it was against Rice. He had 2 drops in the opening half. He
did have his share of drops, but I guess throughout an entire season, 5 isn't too bad. No. I think it's just maybe the times that they happen, you kind of remember those.
Yeah, he's been targeted. I mean, when you look at his how often he's targeted, you're going to let a couple of those slip. There was someone, there was I don't remember who it was. I don't think it was Todd McShay or Mel Kiper, but it was someone in that realm, and they had talked about drops, that he needed to work on those a little bit. But overall, when you consider the amount of targets that he gets, it's fine. It's not, drops are not something the NFL is going to be like, nope, sorry, you're going to lose. You're going to be the 5th overall receiver simply because of drops. But with those big man hands, I was just surprised that he had any. I mean, those things were like, I've got pretty good size hands. I'm a big dude. And I mean, his hands probably are like, like that. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But they had to special order his gloves, which that's insane,
It's crazy. And I mean, when I think of that catch he had against Ole Miss last year, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. That one-handed catch.
I remember.
Speaking of Arkansas and the football season, we made a bowl game. We are going to possibly go to a pretty good bowl. We just don't know which one yet. What bowl would you like to see the Razorbacks be in, and who do you think the Razorbacks might face in their bowl?
I don't know. Outback Bowl does seem enticing to me, which I think 247 and SI have us going to the Outback Bowl, and that's a Big Ten opponent, I believe. Isn't that right? Isn't that a Big Ten opponent?
I believe so. Yeah,
I think it is.
I'd like to see maybe a Penn State.
Penn State. I was gonna say Penn State. I wouldn't mind trying Wisconsin again.
Yeah,
get back at them.
Rematch.
A little rematch. I'm that.
Yeah, I was at that game, but I was very young. But yeah, that was when we had DMAC. But yeah, I wouldn't mind Arkansas playing like maybe a Clemson or something too.
Yeah, and that could happen. That very well could happen. I think Jerry Palm has Arkansas in the. I think he has them in the from CBS Sports. I think he's got him in the Gator. So
yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll I'm sure that they announce that pretty soon, don't they?
It'll be Sunday, Selection Sunday. The following, I guess that's what they call it. I don't know. The following, the day after the conference championship. So yeah, it should be Sunday, and I think it's 11 o'clock. I'm not entirely sure on that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's that Sunday.
Okay. I'd like to thank everyone listening and watching right now on our YouTube page, Facebook, and 4star.live, our website. We've got Ty Hudson on from the Pig Trail Network. Okay. I know next year, everyone likes to look forward to next year. Realistically, as a fan, we're going to be losing a lot of players. But that does not mean Arkansas is going to take a dramatic step back like most people think. It's possible. But what are your expectations for Arkansas next year? Because we do have I guess, arguably the toughest schedule again with our non-conference games. I know two of them are Cincinnati and BYU.
Yeah,
and maybe Liberty too as well.
It's gonna be a tough year. I mean, you know, luckily you do get Bama here, but I mean it's Bama. I mean, it doesn't matter here, there, neutral site, Canada, the moon. It doesn't matter. I mean, Bama's just Bama. And I hate to say that, I am someone who believes that you play the game on the field, but I mean, I listen. The last time Arkansas beat Bama was the year I got married. It was 2006.
Yeah.
So it's just right now it's an automatic dub in the back of my head. But yeah, you still got to play the game on the field. And who knows with that being in Fayetteville? Fayetteville is loud. I don't know if it's that north end zone expansion. It really wasn't a huge difference, but I noticed that when I was there for both the spring games, and there wasn't, I don't know how many people there, under, I think 30,000, 20,000, something like that, but it sounded a lot louder. So maybe that'll help you out against someone like Bama. Didn't do much for Auburn though, when they came to town, but this is, I don't know. It's just, it's what I said this morning on the show. I don't really, it's just too early for me, but a lot of it's going to depend on, obviously, like you said, who leaves, who transfers out, who goes pro. Do you get Mo Brown back, who is eligible for another year? Bumper Pool, Ridgeway, and I don't think they get Ridgeway back. Catalon.
Bumper Pool is eligible another year?
I'm sorry?
You said Bumper Pool was eligible another year?
Yeah, Bumper Pool has another year.
That'd be nice. Get him back.
Him and Ridgeway. And I thought Ridgeway didn't have another year, and he does, apparently. And I didn't know Mo Brown did either, and he does. And
I heard Fouché might come back.
There's some pieces there that if they come back, obviously that'll make me feel a lot better. The question for me, and this was one of my biggest criticisms this year, who on earth was WR number 2? Who was wide receiver 2 in this offense?
Yeah.
I mean, and so what does that mean for next year? Now I know Ketron Jackson, who caught a couple of balls against Mizzou.
He actually looked good against Missouri. I was wondering why we didn't throw the ball to him more this year.
Yeah, true freshman out of Texas, highly rated. Texas wanted him. Sarkisian wanted him. They went after him pretty hard. Chose Arkansas. Huge get for the Hogs. And then you're going to have some big time receivers coming in with this class, Isaiah Santana and Quincy McAdoo.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a huge question mark for me. And obviously, I don't think Burks comes back. I think you've got about a 0.5% chance of that happening, but or not even that. But that's going to be a position that's kind of up in the air. Maybe Warren Thompson, the Florida State transfer, gets it figured out. Doesn't drop 3 balls against UAPB. You know, we might be having a different conversation right now. I think that really was a mental mistake, and I think it kind of dragged on him the rest of the season after that. But yeah, there's a lot of questions. Tight end, does Knox really fit the mold to be a true tight end every down?
This Henry's not cutting it there.
What's that?
Henry, is it Hunter's brother?
Yeah.
I guess he just is he a freshman this year?
No, he's a redshirt sophomore.
Okay. Yeah, I was just expecting him to emerge, but he just hasn't yet.
He's injury prone. He had a drop, as a matter of fact, I think against LSU.
Yeah, he did.
But, I don't know. There's a lot of questions at that position. I know they brought in Aaron Outley, who I was really high on out of Little Rock. You know, he had a season-ending injury his senior year in high school, and then we haven't heard much from him. He's still a Razorback. I hope he develops. They moved the quarterback. I can't believe his name is slipping my mind right now. It was actually his teammate. They moved him to tight end. Big dude. Landon Rogers, 6'4.5", 6'5", like 220. You know, really reminds me a lot of once again, another quarterback slipping my mind who played tight end at Arkansas under Bielema.
Sprinkle?
No, not Hollister. Oh my gosh. Someone's going to watch this and be like, duh.
It's not Hunter Henry.
No.
AJ Derby?
That's it. Derby.
Yeah.
That's it. Derby. Derby was a quarterback out of high school.
Yeah.
And he came here and he played quarterback for a little bit, and then they moved him to tight end, and that was a blessing in disguise. So maybe that happens with Landon Rogers. But yeah, there's a lot of questions. I mean, there really are. Who's RB1 and RB2? You feel comfortable about what's going on at running back and defense. You've got all kinds of questions. So,
well, I'm glad that the quarterback debate has been settled. I think KJ is obviously the guy. Yeah. He saw that this year.
Yeah.
That's good. And like you said, the running back situation, are we going to have all those guys back next year?
I don't think so.
No.
And I think it's already kind of been hinted when Oglesby, who did earn a scholarship here, who was a track guy too, when he decided to hit the portal, Sam Pittman said it multiple times. He won't be the last. Had hinted that he's not going to be the last. They're either going to lose someone on offense, or it's going to be another running back. You know, now Sam can be pretty cryptic. I don't know if you listen to a lot of his post game stuff or when he talks to the media through the week. He can be a little cryptic and kind of throw stuff out there. There was some debate about what he was talking about with Barry Odom.
Yeah.
On Saturday after the win, he was like, well,
we're not going to get into that or something. We're not going to get into that.
We won't get into that with Barry Odom. It was very just what? But then you kind of put 2 and 2 together. It's like, oh, okay, right, because they just beat Mizzou and what have you. But that's kind of what he does. He does that a lot, you know. So it's like, there's going to be more transfers, you know. So maybe it was one of those moments where he misspoke. But yeah, I do think they're going to have more in the portal. At least another back, maybe a receiver.
Yeah, the running backs. I mean, I know they did well as a whole, but they didn't impress me towards the end of the season as much. Are you the same way with?
I am. I also today I graded out the offense, defense, and special teams, and I handed out my MVP and my runner-ups. And but my newcomer of the year I gave to Cam Little.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And multiple people. I had at least one or two. They're like, "You're not giving it to Rocket?" And I said, "No. Look at the second half of the season. He just disappeared."
He did. He really did. And you can say the same about Traylon in a way. Traylon Smith. I mean, he had a couple good runs, and then I think Johnson might have been our most consistent running back, but he didn't just absolutely tear it up either, in my opinion. But we finished 8-4. We weren't one-dimensional, so we could actually throw the ball when we had to.
Yeah.
But you're right, we didn't have that number 2 guy, and I think it's going to be a tough task next year replacing a guy like Traylon Burks. But now Sam Pittman and his staff is going to show us how well they can recruit.
Yeah, this is it. This is when those last 2 recruiting classes, you're going to hope that some guys step up, through spring. And I'm going to say this too. And I know it's kind of a, let a kid enjoy his high school and all that. And I get that. But Quincy McAdoo is going to be here during the spring. He's going to sign early in December. In fact, they're expecting about 90% of these kids to sign. I was told at first they're expecting all of them, but maybe one. But I don't know if that's changed a little bit. I was told that about 2.5 weeks ago. But Centegna, I keep saying that. Centania, as it's properly pronounced, is going to sign early, but he's not going to be here during the spring for track, just like what AJ Green did last year out of Oklahoma. Well, if you look at last year, the running back spot was still more or less like it was still kind of open, but we felt good about Traylon being that guy. But we knew like someone else was going to have to take over that spot. We weren't aware that Dominic Johnson could average almost 6 yards a carry. We weren't aware of that at that point. So you go to spring last year, where it's matter of fact, you and I met at the spring game.
Yes, we did.
Who was here and who was getting carries, and then you look at fall camp and you look at the regular season, who got the majority of the carries between Raheem Sanders and AJ Green.
I even said that Malik Hornsby looked like he was our guy, but that was totally way off.
Yeah, I wasn't real thrilled what I saw out of him. But not saying that I was right, because, I also said that it wouldn't shock me if KJ got benched, which I was wrong on that. I mean, he clearly – I said that speaking more about Malik Hornsby's ability to run, and maybe he could operate the offense a little quicker. But if you go back and look, Raheem Sanders ends up this year with 101 carries. He was here last spring. AJ Green, 43 carries. Now, that's a pretty big discrepancy, 60 or so, or right around 60 or so more carries. Centennia, we're coming into a year where I think we have a question mark about what's going on at wide receiver next year. You feel good about the talent in that room, but I feel like who's ever here between Quincy McAdoo and Isaiah Centennia, and if they possibly add another player, but they could have a shot at getting some playing time. And Centennia is going to sit it out for track, so automatically he's going to be a little bit behind. I realize he's at Fayetteville High, right down the road, but it's a little bit different when you're putting on the pads and you're putting on that Razorback helmet and you're actually participating in spring camp. That's a huge difference. And so I think, Centennia is good enough. He's going to come in and probably pick things up pretty quick. I've seen him play in person. He is all that in a bag of chips. Let me tell you, Centennia is a pretty exciting player, but Quincy McAdoo is going to have the advantage of probably understanding the playbook and, being around those guys a little bit. So we'll have to wait and see. But like you said, this is the real test, right? We had year one, which is a COVID year, but whatever. Okay. Year two, they outperformed. I think we could all agree 8-4. Now you're heading into the year where you're expected to hit a reset button in terms of your roster. Let's see how they handle it. See how this coaching staff responds.
This might stir a little bit of people up, but the loss of Mike Woods, how do you think that affected us this year? I can't help but think about what could have been if we had him.
You must have heard. Did you hear me complain about that or talk about that? I said the
Today?
same thing. I did catch some heat for that. I said what I had said was, look, first off, you're going to let a kid be a kid. You want to transfer and move on, do your thing. I'm not here.
He didn't tear it up at Oklahoma this year by any means.
He was before he got hurt.
Oh, okay.
He was their second leading receiver. But I think he have one touchdown, and I don't know how many.
But did it actually help him in the end? Did it help his draft stock, do you think? I don't think it did either.
And it hurt Arkansas. It hurt Arkansas more than it benefited Mike Woods. Now, Mike Woods has got to do what's best for him. He felt like OU was it. I'm not going to criticize him for that.
No, not at all.
He should have stuck it out here. And I think, that speaks to some of the heat that Kendall Briles took. I don't think Kendall was necessarily real comfortable throwing the ball any more than they already were, because they didn't have another guy that could get open besides Traylon Burks. You'd have to be
Mhm.
you want to ruin your career if you want to go single man coverage against Traylon Burks, which by the way, Mizzou did, and we saw what happened. You
I
know,
mean, let's
Bama
be
tried.
honest. Mike Woods is a matchup problem for any defense.
So good at creating separation. You know, great deep
So to
threat.
have another guy like that this year, man, we could have. It, man, I I guarantee you, we would have had at least 9 or 10 wins this year. But anyway, we still got more wins than I think we bargained for. If you look at the season as a whole, it was a successful one, and we can still get 9 wins if
Mhm.
we get the bowl win. So, if would you have taken that at the beginning of the year?
Oh yeah. If you wouldn't, you're, you know, I
Yeah.
don't know. You're a brand new fan. You're brand new around these parts. If you weren't excited about that, I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, I think fans, honestly, even though I think Razorback fans are very fickle, and that's just me, who's I've
Mhm.
done this, you know,
They are.
for a while, uh, both on YouTube and on a podcast, and I mean, I've done this for a minute, and as soon as things kind of turn south, up, I'm done. They stop. You know, they don't really consume the
Oh yeah.
content. They turn real negative real quick. But I think most fans would have taken a 6 or 7 win season at the end of the day because it still gets you to a bowl game, which is so important for a rebuild. You know, that's more practices under your belt. That's more opportunities
Yeah.
to get better. So anyone who, again, I'm not trying to say that like you and I are so much above everybody else, but anyone who
No,
pays attention to the sport of college football understands the importance of just making it to a bowl game and what that could do for your program. But then,
you make an interesting point about the fans. I mean, we're all passionate about the Hogs, but at the end of the day, it is still a game, and you don't want it to affect your your
Mhm.
your mental health. I think some people take it. It's hard to do that sometimes because I've gotten really worked up over games, but
Oh yeah.
not to the point where I'll go on Facebook and or anywhere else and just be real negative. Because I mean, it's not gonna you're not gonna have a fun life if you're being negative all the time, and I've learned that the hard way.
Sometimes it takes, you know, just getting a little older and being around it for a while, and then you start to just kind of get it, you know. And I'm a Ram fan. Okay, I get it. It's been hard to be a Ram fan, other than making the Super Bowl a little while, a couple years ago. Um, Cardinal fan, you know, like
Yeah,
Celtics fan. I'm used to kind of being where I'm, you know, with
yeah,
where the Hogs are at, and but it's real easy to get emotionally involved and
it is.
hard to do. It's hard to take the fan goggles off sometimes and just try to be as unbiased as humanly possible doing what we do. But then again, in our Discord, I'll be the first person every single possession this basketball game against
Yeah,
Penn. Almost every other possession, I'm griping in Discord like, oh, what are they doing? I don't understand. Connor Vanover, he's settling for that corner pocket three. That's not his shot. You know, going on and on. That just kind
I
of that's
wanted to
what
actually talk about the basketball team real fast
oh,
before
good.
before we wrap this up. So we're 6-0 right now. I think we're ranked number 10.
As of today,
Uh,
yep.
I'm happy with where we are. We haven't lost, but I'm not overly impressed with the way we've played, at least offensively.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion on the way the team looks right now?
JD Note and likes are gonna have to understand that there really isn't an I in team.
Yeah,
Those two guys, they're just I don't have a problem with them taking the majority of the shots. I don't even have a problem with them sometimes with some of their shot selection, but you're hearing it almost at least twice now. Eric Musselman in a post game, he said in this last one after Penn, and it kind of surprised me. He said this team is difficult to coach. And you knew exactly who he was talking about. He's talking about JD Note and he's talking about likes. Those
yeah,
two guys are kind of they're double-edged swords.
hmm
The point production out of those two could be phenomenal, and it will be. I mean, JD Note is averaging what, 18 points a game or something, or right around that. Likes can light it up. He finds ways to get to the free throw line.
but they're not. Here's the thing with shooters is they're not always going to shoot lights out. So
They're not, and that's why I don't understand this mentality of shooters shoot. I
yeah,
don't I've always struggled with that. Going all the way back to when I first started watching basketball when I was a kid. back in the good old days of Nolan Richardson in 94 and the late 80s. You'd hear that all the time. Shooters shoot. They got to shoot their way out. No, they don't. Not when they're, 3 of 19 at 3-point land at beyond the arc. No, you've got to do something different. And this dribble shoot, that's not what Musselman wants when you're bringing the ball over the half court. He wants you to move the ball. He wants ball movement. This guy counts every single pass on every possession. He is obsessed. He reminds me so much of Bobby Petrino. He's the basketball version of Bobby Petrino because he pays attention to every little detail, and that's what makes him a great coach. I don't have a problem with him saying that in a post game talking to the media. I don't have a problem with him saying that because he's honest, and he's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Those two can win you games, but they can also lose you just as many. So they're going to have to get those two figured out. Need to see more ball movement. The assist to turnover ratio, it's not terrible, but it could be so much better. The turnovers against Penn were just frustrating, and they weren't forced.
And against Kansas State and Cincinnati, man, it got ugly on offense for long periods of time in those two games.
Do you know what their 3-point shooting is the last 3 games?
It's terrible.
9 of 56.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I don't know how they've won those two games in KC. I don't know how you did that shooting like that. I know they did well at the free throw line.
They're going to have to work on some things before we get to SEC play for sure.
But I mean, here's the thing though. My gosh, they are so deep with legit talent. Like those guys that rotate in off the bench aren't good enough to start for 80% of this league. I'm impressed with what we have seen. Like Adese Toney, that dude is an MVP.
Yeah, he's incredible. He plays a lot bigger than what he is. He's not a real big guy, but he hustles and he's got a nice little shot on him. He can hit the mid range and he can knock down the 3 every now and then.
He can. I think he's good for maybe 1 a game if he actually took the shots. And he's had open looks and he passes them up sometimes like Jalen.
But I think what sticks out the most is his just rebounding, man. He's just a great rebounder.
Watch him box out. And Musselman's talked about it. And I heard I think it was maybe Kansas State's coach that said it, like trying to get him out of position to move away from or to make adjustments to attack the board. He makes it near impossible. Now that's obviously not what he said word for word, but just kind of loosely elaborating on what he was trying to say. He just said that, he's a great offensive rebounder and he boxes out extremely well. And talking or listening to the media, local media, listening to Eric Musselman, he is a box out machine. He puts himself in position to make plays. He's just, thank God he's here. And I didn't think he would be the guy. I thought, what's Amude? I always pronounce that name wrong.
Yeah, I thought he would. I thought he would be kind of our best get, and he may eventually turn out to be. But
we're seeing little bits and pieces here and there. We're seeing it. It's starting to. If he gets it figured out, if him and we can get some quality minutes from Kamani, let's cut down on these junk shots, on these contested shots. They could be, oh my gosh, they could go far. And this team really is, I think, as or more talented than last year's team. It's a size thing for me. That's kind of something I'm a little bit concerned about. How big can they really play? Are there going to be some matchup issues? But I feel pretty good about the Razorbacks this year. And I think they deserve to be top 10 too.
I do too. We still haven't really seen a great performance out of Devo Davis, Jalen Williams. Vanover's played pretty well this year, but I don't know exactly what I don't know really what to expect out of him each game, but he definitely does. He contributes to this team. I know Musselman sometimes doesn't always play him, but I'm sure he's got reasons for that.
As soon as the game speeds up, he'll move him to the bench. Or if last year it was when he would brick outside, you'd see him, he'd go like 0 for 3, and then that was it. He wouldn't be back on the floor. And so last year he had a pretty tight leash on him. I don't know about this year. And he, that for opening game, he didn't even play, which I thought was weird because that was not a fast paced game. was a game I felt like he could dominate. I don't know why. I don't think we ever really got an explanation for why he didn't play. Maybe he had a bad week of practice. Musselman's made that perfectly clear too. If you have a bad week of practice, you're going to miss minutes. If you have a good week of practice, you're going to gain minutes.
He kind of reminds me, not as good of a shooter, but like kind of a smaller Dirk Nowitzki. Because he's not going to overpower you, and I don't think he ever will. I don't think that's his style. I think he's just there to tower over people and knock down shots. He's a really good free throw shooter.
Yeah, he leads the team in percentage. I forgot what it is. It's like 94% at the free throw line. He's only taking like 13 shots. Tony's at like 37 shots. I think he's shooting around 86%, which is incredible. Mm-hmm. You get north of that volume, you get north of shooting like 73, 75%. That's pretty solid. You'll take that. He's shooting in mid 80s, so if he can continue that, him and Connor and some of those other guys, JD Note is a pretty decent free throw shooter, I believe. I forgot what his numbers look like, but I mean, there's so many different ways they really can beat you, which is similar to last year. Last year, and I made this perfectly clear at the beginning of the year, matchup issues weren't as much of a concern. Now this year that probably changes a little bit, just simply because they're not as big as they were a year ago. And you don't have Justin Smith, right? You're missing some pretty big pieces. Moses Moody was a big piece too, but yeah, their matchup issues could become a thing. But right now, I'm not blown away by their performance, but I'm also not taken back. I'm not looking at it pessimistically or anything like that yet. We'll see. They got OU coming up here soon. Yeah, maybe our attitudes will change.
Yeah, it's going to get tough, and we're going to lose some games this year. But from what I've seen from this team, I haven't seen any reason to really worry or any reason to think that we're going to win it all this year. But
yeah,
I like what I've seen because that Cincinnati team that we beat is a really good team.
They are.
And we found a way to beat them even when we weren't shooting very well. So credit to our defense in that game. And it's an exciting time to be a Razorback fan. Football is finally good again. We've got, basketball in the top 10. Women's basketball, I think, is doing pretty well right now as well. I think our women's soccer team made it to the Elite Eight this year. If I remember correctly. So it's just a good time for a Razorback to be a Razorback fan, and I appreciate you for being on for this episode, and I hope we get you back on soon, Ty.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Take care and good luck, and we'll talk again.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
All right, man.